Good morning, colleagues. Hope you are still well. Today's presentation is a continuation of the startup workshop of yesterday. We have to do the last part where we're going to talk about the internal assessment guideline. And like I said yesterday, in case you don't have it, kindly indicate so that you can be assisted. The internal assessment guideline is flagged in the screen. Now you can see the Free State internal guideline 2021 from grade 10 up to grade 12. You can see the first part of the internal assessment guideline talks about the index for teachers file. This is helping in terms of your filing, one school and teacher information sheets. We're talking about the annual assessment plan, which must be done at school level, and the work schedule and ATP, which has been sent to schools. These are the work schedules that we discussed yesterday, and moderation reports. You will see as we continue with the internal assessment guideline, you will get the template that indicates what is needed when we are doing internal assessment at the cluster as well as the district, provincial and national. The template you'll see as we continue. And then you have the formal assessment tasks, marking guidelines, pre and the post moderation tools for each task, and then daily planning and lesson preparations, intervention strategies, subject improvement plans. And please remember, the subject improvement plan is informed by item and error analysis, because once you are able to see the gaps in your learner's performance, then that informs effective subject improvement plan. And then teacher's timetable include a summary of the total hours per week. Now, as you continue, you can see Directorate Curriculum Secondary Schools teacher profile. Please, we need this profile. Remember last year, colleagues, I sent an email, even the WhatsApp, where I requested that you send me the profile. And thank you very much, colleagues, who responded accordingly. But please, in case there are new teachers in your school, kindly notify me. New teacher teaching the subject, not necessarily new. There are those who are new, novice teachers. There are teachers who had been there but were not teaching technical maths. Please indicate in this information and return this part to me back so that I can be kept posted as to how many teachers do we have. Last year we had 73. I'm sure this year we have an increased number of technical maths teachers, because we also have more learners taking the subject and schools introducing the subject for the first time. Now you can see it talks about surname, initial, serial number of the teacher, the email, the school's telephone number in the email, and so forth. The principal, you can see the template as indicated here. And the qualifications of the teacher, where you indicate you did B.Ed, majored in mathematics, and so forth. And then the major subject and so on. So this teacher profile is also needed. And then technical mathematics, please indicate the number of learners. We always request this information, even when we do school visits, that we need to know how many learners are in your school, grade 10, 11, as well as grade 12. Not for a particular teacher, for number of learners taking the subject in the whole school, technical maths, grade 10, 11, and 12. But I think also this information is updated in the SSMs, where you indicate how many learners do we have in a school. Now we also have the information sheet, annual assessment plan. I think I spoke about the annual assessment plan, colleagues, where I also indicated that you need to show in your annual assessment plan what is it that will be assessed and when, so that the parents and learners can be kept posted and prepare accordingly. You can see dates and topics to be completed the first week of January. Assessment plan is not done in March, it's done in January, to say this is how we plan to assess our learners throughout the year, and be communicated to the school, the parents, as well as learners. Please make sure that this is ready and parents and learners have it. Adhere to the Tron plan. Colleagues, I spoke about adherence to the Tron plan. For instance, when I was talking about assessment in term 1, where you are supposed to give learners an investigation. And according to your assessment plan, you have investigation to be given to learners, for instance, on the 20th of February. But then you give them not on the 20th of February, you give them on the 30th of March. You see, adherence to the assessment plan, it is such an inconvenience, not only to learners, but also to you, to mark the test as well as investigation at the same time. So that is where you find even the submission is dragging behind because of not adhering to the Tron plans. Now the work schedule indicate days to reflect planning and completion of the topics. You have seen even in our work schedule, ATP, there is a slot where you indicate where you started the topic and where you completed it. Such information must be recorded in your ATP. Adhere to all details of the ATP. Colleagues, you look at the work schedule, for instance. It says you must do complex numbers, week 1 up to week 3, for instance. But now that is not saying anything. It means you must further go to your policy document to check what is it that you must do under complex numbers. Because if it says complex numbers and it only talks about the polar form, and it is not specific about the modulars like we said yesterday, the arguments and so forth, then it means you are missing some parts of what needs to be done as indicated in the work schedule. The ATP alone is not assisting. And remember, I said our ATP, the work schedule, do not supersede the policy document. Every time you look at a topic in your ATP, but again, you need to go to your policy document to check what is it that you must do under that topic. Again, you look at the first principle, grade 12. It says first principle, but when you go to the policy document, it outlines that you do first principle, only linear functions. So it's important that you align yourself with the policy document. Please check your ATP, check with your schedule, and again, it's important that you keep on checking what does the policy say on that topic. And SSM's mark sheets, raw learners' marks must be captured. The correct total marks of the task and date must be entered. No marks will be accepted if not recorded in the SSMs. SSM's official mark sheet must be used. Only the SSMs, nothing else, colleagues. And then the question papers must be typed. Colleagues, this one. Question papers must be typed. Because sometimes when they are not typed, you find that there are some errors in the paper, and learners now are disadvantaged because the paper is not of good quality. So let us type question papers, and the marking guideline must also be typed. Not only typed, there must also be marking descriptors. What do we mean? You are saying x squared minus x minus 6 equals to 0, solve for x. The first mark is factorization, x minus 3 into x plus 2 equals to 0. You give a mark and then you indicate it is for factors. And then the answer is x is equals to 3 or x equals to negative 2. You give a mark and indicate as a descriptor a mark for both values of x. This is what we mean by a tick as well as the descriptors. And your question paper must have the date, the total marks, and the duration. And please, the duration must relate with the marks allocated in the paper. Now, when you type your paper, it must always be on Times New Roman, font size 12, italics for letters, like this one, the variables, Microsoft Equation 3.0. In case you don't have Microsoft 3.0, please indicate for assistance. There are IT people in your district, for instance, if I'm not around, there are IT people in your school, they can assist with Microsoft Equation in case you don't have it there. Times New Roman, and of course you need also mathematics softwares to draw diagrams and so forth. It is just unfortunate that not all teachers are invited for this exercise, as it is continuing in Bloemfontein as we speak now. But those who are not invited, please don't stress. Indicate that you urgently need help on this one so that you can prioritize your school in terms of training on setting as well as of using Microsoft Equations 3.0. Error and performance analysis. Colleagues, now this must be done after every formal task. And I always say, you don't do error analysis after the formal task only. You also do it during your informal task in the class. You are giving learners activities. What is this item in error? You are saying our learners, they are solving for X, for instance. And then when they solve for X, the factors are not correct. That is the problem. They are able to write the standard form, but when it comes to factorization, that is where the challenge is. You pick it up in your daily activities and you respond accordingly. There are learners who are unable to factorize, but the skill of factorization must be taught to learners. But in a case where really you need to come with measures to assist those learners who are still struggling with factorization, then it means you come in with the correct measures to say, let us now teach them instead of factorization using quadratic formula. Like when you look at the learners' responses in the 2020 exam, most of our learners got equations and inequalities correct. Why? Because they used quadratic formula. But I'm not saying the skill of factorization must not be taught. So I was trying to indicate the issue of error analysis that informs effective intervention. So, but after the formal tasks, please, colleagues, you are expected to indicate question 1.1.1. You should not necessarily itemize every sub-question. You itemize sub-questions where there are areas of concern, and then provide intervention strategy to say, this is how I am going to help my learners. But you can have a problem with, say for instance, like I indicated, factorization. And then your solution is, I'll give learners more problems. They have problems, you are adding to their problems. That is not an intervention. The problem is factorization. Your intervention, I'll give them more problems. They have problems, you are adding to their problems. Instead, factorization is a challenge. As an intervention strategy, I will advise those who are struggling to use quadratic formula to resort to quadratic formula instead of factors. So we need to look at such things. And then, colleagues, you discuss errors with learners remedial. I mean, these are the errors. Learners, I have noted that you have a challenge on functions. Sketching of a parabola. You taught them the dual intercept method. And then you say, for sketching, because it is acceptable in technical maths to use table to draw your graphs. Let's see how best we can draw the graph using table method, and so forth. Such things must be discussed with your learners. And then moderation reports, internal moderation reports, cluster moderation reports, district moderation reports, provincial moderation reports. Colleagues, after all these moderations, please make sure that you file each and every report. Here is the subject advisor visiting your school. You have the report. You keep it in your file as a reference moving forward to say, I visited Kagisho Technical School. And then this is what I picked at Kagisho. Colleagues, work on this issue so that when I make a follow-up visit, we are able to check the last report and measure progress made after the visit. So keep all the reports that you have, even the school's report, they must be filed in your file. Now, lesson planning, daily lesson planning for quality presentation. Colleagues, it is so important to prepare. Otherwise, you will be embarrassed. You take questions, you did not go through those questions, You go to class, you give to learners, only to find the question is so difficult you can't even solve it. That can be so embarrassing. Not only embarrassing, learners end up losing confidence in you as their teacher. Please, it's important to plan. It is important to plan, because if you don't plan, you'll end up giving learners 4 exercises on simultaneous equation and you have 30 minutes period. And you look at the simultaneous equation, it's so long. You can't even do 4, because you must give learners an activity, check progress, remedy in case there are gaps. You move to another one. Imagine giving learners 2 activities on cubic function, sketch cubic function. Sketch cubic function for 30 minutes, you give them 3. You see, this is a result of not planning. You know, when you are doing equation, you can give them 1, 2, 3, 4 equations. 30 minutes will be enough. So planning is very important. Use prescribed textbooks and exercises. Give daily written work for practice. Colleagues, you can't have a situation where you gave learners in mathematics. I mean, this is maths. You do activities every day. You give learners activities on the 7th of February, on the 15th of February. 3 days pass without any activity. The next activity is on the 20th. That is a clear indication that you are not giving learners activities every day. Minimum number of activities expected per week, colleagues, 5. I think I spoke maths here. Minimum. Minimum, it means you can give more than that. Then it means it's 5 daily activities done in class. Homeworks are also part of it. Then it means if you include homeworks, you have 10 daily activities. And you need to be very careful as you give your learners homeworks, because they will not serve any purpose. You give learners homeworks and then you don't have corrections on it, because those homeworks must be discussed with learners the following day. So when you give learners homeworks, don't give them too many exercises that you will not mark, because it means if you give learners 10 problems to solve and tomorrow you need to mark them, that simply implies tomorrow you will not have time to teach. Instead, it's only marking of homeworks. Give them as little as possible so that you are able to mark with learners and continue with your lesson for the next day. So this is very important, and if you are not planning correctly, you will not be able to achieve all this. Now, annual assessment plan, technical mathematics, grade 12. I think we spoke about the tasks to be done. So you see it says assignment, investigation, and a test. Test 1, task 2, task 3. So you need to indicate the date planned for this assignment, the date planned for investigation, the date planned for test. And you indicate how to, you don't just wake up tomorrow morning and decide that I'm going to assess on assignment factorization. It must be planned. That assignment, I'm planning for this assignment to revise grade 11 work and notify learners. Your assignment will be on equations, simultaneous equation. Maybe the last topic be complex numbers. I'm just making an example. So you must specify the topics that will be assessed in each and every task. It is the case with all the tasks throughout the year for grade 12, grade 11, as well as grade 10. I'm sure you can see even grade 11. And when you look at the annual assessment plan, it talks to what needs to be assessed as indicated in the work, in the ATP that we discussed yesterday. It's an investigation of project test, assignment test, and you indicate. What do you indicate here? The topic to be assessed. It is still the same for grade 12 and then the same in grade 10, the assessment plan. And now here we have moderation report of teacher's portfolio, colleagues. Now this one gives you a hint as to what is it that is moderated. So when moderation has to take place, you need to prepare accordingly what is in here. We'll just make an example. You look at the standard and details of assessment tasks and tools according to the taxonomy levels. That simply implies as you test your learners, please make sure that you have the correct taxonomy levels in your task. What happens in technical maths, remember, knowledge questions must be 25%, and then routine procedure questions must be 45%, and then you have complex 20% and problem solving 10%. So your tests, all your tests at school level must adhere to the taxonomy levels as indicated in the policy document. So whenever you are moderated, the moderator will look at your task and check it against what the policy says in terms of assessment. So you must adhere to all the policy documents, the taxonomy levels as indicated. And I'm sure you can see that level 1 and 2 questions constitute 70% of the paper. So you need to have that. And if I say 25%, it is plus or minus 25% plus or minus 3. So that simply implies there is a provision for deviation of at least 3, at least two or 3, and then for in terms of cognitive levels. But please make sure that level 1 and 2 they have a total of 70%, and then problem solving together with complex levels are at 30% together. And then this is a sample of, this is a template, not a sample, a template used for moderation. So whenever your files are needed, your tasks are needed, these are things that are checked. And please, colleagues, earlier I indicated the issue of the pre and the post moderation. HODs, please make sure that whenever learners are assessed, those tasks are moderated. And you keep the reports of the moderation of the tasks, whether it was accepted or whether it was not accepted, and there has to be areas of improvement on the tasks that must be recorded, must be archived. Have it in your file that I moderated these tasks, I approved it, or I did not approve it. Provide reasons for not approving the paper again. Now, like I indicated here, tasks internally moderated. We should not have a situation where learners are given tasks that are not moderated. So you see, it indicates, the moderator will indicate the task is not moderated. How will I know that it is not moderated? It is not signed by the HOD that it has been moderated and signed. There is no report that says it has been moderated. And if there is report, there is evidence, then it will be indicated, yes, and the remarks will be indicated. So this is exactly what you need to check in terms of your portfolio when it has to be moderated. This is what is needed. It gives you clarity on what to expect. And then you look at the moderation report of SBA task. This is what I spoke about. Whether the paper, are the instructions in the paper, and are they not unambiguous? And then you look at the duration and the total as indicated according to the CAPS. Like I said, you don't set without the CAPS document. And then you look, I will not go through the whole document. You see, is the task neatly typed and is numbering correct? You see this one, colleagues. You find yourself sometimes when you visit schools, one finds himself in a situation where when you visit school, the task is not neatly typed. Sometimes it is cut and paste. And you cut the question as it is with the numbering that does not correlate with the numbering in your paper. That can be confusing. Please make sure, colleagues, that you type your questions. Stop the cut and paste, because sometimes the pictures are not clear, the typing not clear, because it has been cut and pasted so many times. And to an extent that the pictures and even the typing become so faint, and learners are now disadvantaged. The tables are not clear, the graphs are not clear. And then please make sure. These are some of the things. When you submit your task, there should be a task marking guideline. If you use rubric, it must be there and neatly typed with ticks as well as the descriptors after the tick. And then moderation of scripts report. And colleagues, this is where I had a lot of problems when I visited schools. Sometimes you find a situation where you have a marking guideline. You are marking your learners. But when you look at the marking, the teacher did not follow the marking guideline. Now the question is, what is the purpose of the marking guideline if you are not following it when you mark learners? And you need to also to be very careful. This one I need to indicate. When you set a test, you have the marking guideline. the marking guideline must have all possible options. Why do we need all possible options? Learners will not respond to the same question the same way. Others will provide you solutions differently. And every time when you see something new that is written by your learners, it means immediately you must look at what the learner is saying. Because once you see that the learner is writing this and it is not in the marking guideline, have interest to check the thinking behind the solution. Otherwise, you'll find out the learner is right, but because it is not in the memo and you are not even interested to look at it, you give learners 0. Learners were so disadvantaged in terms of marking. The CA marking. When do you apply CA marking? That is continuous accuracy. I'll make an example with the derivative. Learners are given to an expression where they have to differentiate the square root of x plus 2 over x. Now what happens here? It means the first part must be simplification. The second part is the derivative. That simply implies the first part, if it is wrong, the simplification is wrong, the learner is penalized. But using the wrong simplification to correctly differentiate, it's a CA mark. It's a continuous accuracy. The learner did a mistake in the first step, but the second step, the skill is correctly applied. Continuous accuracy. Colleagues, please, our marking guidelines have descriptors. They indicate on the far right that for this question, it's A or CA. When it says A, it means it's an accuracy mark. You don't expect any answer except the one that is in the marking guideline. But once it says CA, it means you look at the learner's mistake and check if the learner used that incorrect statement correctly in the follow-up question. Then that is a CA mark. So such things you need to check, and then transferring of marks, colleagues. I know sometimes mistakes are done, but you can have a situation where a learner, for instance, got 83%. When you record it outside, you say 23. We need to be very careful in terms of transferring marks. Otherwise, these learners will come back and say, but I feel this is not correct. I did not get this. You look and these mistakes are there. Some learners, they don't follow these things. They are disadvantaged. You gave him 23. You gave him 25 when in actual fact that learner got 52. And then it means the learner is failed. That learner did not fail. You failed that learner because you transferred wrong marks in the SSMs. And the learner is quiet. And then he's disadvantaged. It's unfair. Please let us make sure. Let us not rush when you enter learner's marks. This is what you always emphasize even at the marking center. When you transfer learner's marks, please, these are not just marks. There is a person behind that performance. You see, when you say 20% of learners failed, 80% of learners failed, it's easy to say 80% failed. It means so many learners failed. So many learners are disadvantaged. So many people, their dreams are shattered because of performance. Sometimes because of our own mistakes in terms of our marking, in terms of transferring marks. Please let us make sure that such things are correctly done. The conversion of marks from your scripts to the SSMs, but don't forget SSMs indicate the weightings correctly. Once you punch marks, they are now correctly converted according to the weightings indicated. And then these are things that are done. The moderator will indicate the scripts moderated. If he moderated 3 learners' tasks, will indicate the learner, the mark, the moderated mark, and the comments. And the comments, please, colleagues, if you are moderated, you gave a learner, for instance, 40%. After I moderate, I get 48%. Once I indicate here the moderated mark is 48, it means immediately after getting your report, you must go back to SSMs to correct that mark, because you had 40, moderated is 48. It means this mark must be corrected immediately. That is why when we have follow-up visit, we say, where is the report? So that you can see, you get 40, I got 48. Did you adjust this mark in your SSMs? If the answer is yes, then it's fine. So we need to look at that. If the adjustment is made to your marks, please go back to SSMs and correct the mark as moderated. And then taking a method cluster moderation, This is the tool used in the cluster moderation. I'm sure you can see there are different forms for each level of moderation. This is the cluster moderation, the task done, the question paper, the rubric, and the memo there. So these are the tools. Please orientate yourself with these tools. They are very much important in preparing yourself. And colleagues, please, to avoid confusion, at school level, I think this must be noted. At school level, when you moderate, you use green pen. Colleagues, please, HOD. You find sometimes HOD using the red pen to moderate. Blue pen, black pen. Blue pen and the black pen is for cluster moderation. Green pen is for subject advisors and department heads. Purple pen for provincial moderation. So please look at this. It's very important. The HOD, please use the green pen for internal moderation. And then subject advisor moderation. This is the tool when Mr. Stolle visit your school, Mr. Ludibana come to your school, they look at these things, and this is the tool that they use to moderate. Orientate yourself. Don't be shocked that I come and then I request 1, 2, 3 things and then you don't have them there with you. Like I indicated here, the test question paper, marking guideline, analysis grid of cognitive level. Analysis grid, very important. Please, analysis grid, that is where you indicate question 1, 1.1, 2 marks. Which level? It's level 2. Such things, that is an analysis grid, because it will also help you to check in terms of cognitive levels, if there is adherence to cognitive levels, like I indicated earlier. 25% knowledge, 45% routine procedure, 20% complex procedure, 10% problem solving. You see, I said it before, that this one, you have 70% between knowledge and routine procedure. And then please, every time when you give learners assessment, no formula sheet must be provided for test and examinations for grade 10 and 11. Formula sheet is only given to the grade 12 formula sheet. But I understand under mensuration in grade 11, the formulae are normally given. But not all formulae are given. There are questions where you need to give learners formulae under mensuration, and this is done only under mensuration. And then for grade 10 and 11. For grade 12, yes, formula sheet is provided. Now, full examination in grade 12 must be written, and the marks must be included in the calculations of marks for SBA marked by the teacher. So SBA marks for grade 10 and 11 will not include the final examination marks. That simply implies you have all the tasks form part of SBA, but the final one is not included in the SBA. And then examination papers for grade 10 and 11 must be satisfactory standard. I spoke about this one, cognitive levels, and should where possible have a distribution of marks similar to that of grade 12. Descriptors, cognitive levels, very important. And colleagues, here we are, the paper. Please look. In case, like I said yesterday, whether the paper is provincially set or it is set at school level. But this you must be careful of. Grade 10, paper 1, number systems, 10 marks, algebraic expressions, 25, equations and inequalities, 15, and that will be 50. And you look at June, paper 2, this is for June. Paper 2, trigonometry, 40 marks, mensuration, 10 marks, and that will be what? 50 marks. The same applies with grade 11, paper 1, you can see it's exponent, logs and sets, 25 marks, equations and inequalities, 25 marks, nature of roots, 10, functions and graph, 40 marks, and that is 100. And then you look at paper 2. The topics are indicated. The mark allocation per topic is also indicated, and the expected totals are indicated from grade 10, 11, and 12 for both papers when June examinations. Like I said, some will be for, if things go well, then it means they will be provincially set. But in a case they are set at school level, this is what you must look at. Even when you moderate, you will check if these topics are there and the mark allocations are the same as indicated in this document. And then the same applies with grade 12. I'm sure you can see end of year papers. And then end of year papers, you can see this is grade 12. This is what is expected in grade 12. You see algebra equations, 60 plus or minus 3 for grade 10. Look at grade 12, 50. Can you see if learners are disadvantaged in this topic, grade 12, 50 alone, it's a pass mark. because learners must get 45 to pass. So 50 alone on equations, algebra in equations, 50 alone. That is why I said in your intervention earlier, please make sure you take care of your grade 11 topics. Take care of these grade 11 topics. So these topics are indicated, and the total marks per paper, per grade, also indicated, as well as the totals. And then the same applies with paper 2. And then colleagues, you can see we have the task indicated and what is expected in each and every task. Colleagues, that is your informal assessment, internal assessment guideline. And please make sure that you also look at this one, informal assessment test. Please, colleagues, informal assessment should be in a form of classwork, homework, or informal test. Where possible, we will have some cluster informal tests. And in case we have such, that will assist in preparing for the main test, the formal test. Please make sure that you give learners as many informal tasks as possible. Sufficient daily assessment activities should be done and be of good quality and cover all cognitive levels. Good quality does not necessarily mean when you give learners activity, you start with difficult ones. You build up, simple building up to difficult ones. Remember, colleagues, more often than not, learners are disadvantaged in a case where you assessed them on level 1 and 2. Level 1 and 2 every day in your daily activities. Come the test, there comes level 3 and level 4. That is very much unfair. And learners must be exposed to all levels of questioning in the exams. And there is also daily planning included here. Please, we encourage that you plan. I think I spoke about it. Here is a template that helps you to plan accordingly, colleagues. And colleagues, I think that is all for internal assessment guideline. Please make sure that you go through these documents as indicated from yesterday, even today, summing up with this internal assessment guideline. And colleagues, wish you everything of the best in 2021. But don't forget the next session. We are now doing content, and it will be done on the topic complex numbers. Please, we'll send the link now to go through the link. Make sure that learners have that presentation of complex numbers. All the presentations that will be done on contact, please expose learners to those. Thank you very much.